Hi, my name is Julia Kline with intuitivebusinesswoman.com, and today in this video we're going to talk about effective strategies for utilizing questions to close the sale, because this is a really important blockage that a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners come up against, right? Is how to actually sell stuff. And the process, the part of the process that often causes a lot of is the actual close, right? Closing the sale. And it's entirely possible to close the sale and to close lots of sales and to become a very powerful closer and do it from a place of integrity and authenticity and heart-centered service, actually, to the person who you are selling to. And one of the great ways to do that is with questions. And so we're going to talk about that today in this short video, some effective strategies for utilizing questions. And if you like what you hear in this video, you are free to join my webinar that's coming up next week, The Secret to Getting More Clients and Leads. And that's going to be a free webinar on Thursday and Friday, June 12th and 13th. And that's two live broadcasts. And to register for that webinar, go to intuitivebusinesswoman.com/secrets. But first, let's talk a little bit about some effective question techniques for closing the sale. And the first one, of course, is to utilize questions to glean information. And this is, frankly, as far as most business owners go. When they ask questions as part of their sales process, usually all they're thinking about is the answers to the questions. In other words, the information that they're going to get. They ask factual information. You know, let's say if it's a realtor, right, and they're having a listing conversation. You know, how big is the home? What size is the mortgage that's on this home? Is the home currently occupied? You know, these kind of factual information, and that's great. And that is certainly one purpose for questions. Because obviously you have to have some of the factual information about where the person is at, what their situation is, in order to effectively close the sale. And at the end of this video, I'm actually going to share with you several specific questions that I like to use a lot that are not just factually oriented, but really kind of dig in a little bit deeper and get some valuable information beyond just the facts, ma'am, just the facts, right? So that'll be coming up at the end of this video. Now, the second strategy, the very effective strategy for utilizing questions, is to use your questioning strategies to build rapport. And the way that this happens is essentially when you ask a question, naturally the other person answers. And when they are answering the question, usually that means that they're talking about themselves. And talking about oneself is usually most people's favorite thing to do, right? And so when you are giving them an opportunity to do something that they love to do, talk about their favorite topic themselves, you are making them like you. You're building rapport, which is great. So asking questions and giving them the chance to talk about themselves and to have you listen and nod and good, yes, I understand. Wow, that must have been terrible. All these sorts of things, excellent strategies for building rapport. Now, the mistake that some people make is that they cut people off. They ask a question, listen to the answer for 15 seconds, and then cut them off before they're done. Terrible idea. That absolutely ruins a big part of the point of asking a question. So a strategy that I recommend instead is to have out a notepad. And as the person is answering your question, jot down their answer, but more importantly, jot down whatever's coming into your own mind in the way of a response that you would like to make. Because that way, it's easier for you to button your lip and listen, knowing that you've got to jot it down how you want to respond later. Can we get on board with that? If all you get out of this video is how to be silent and allow the person to talk, right there, your closing percentage is going to go up with just that one little nugget out of this video. But the next strategy for utilizing questions as a closing technique is a fairly advanced strategy, and that is to listen to the answers that they are giving, not for the information that they contain, but rather to listen to the questions to learn how they answered the question as insight into their personality. For instance, if you say to somebody, back when I was in Mary Kay, as you may know, part of my background in sales is that I was in the top 1% of the worldwide sales force with Mary Kay Cosmetics back when I was a kid, back when I was in my 20s. And one of the things that Mary Kay Cosmetics taught me a solid 80% of what I know about sales at this point in my life. And one of the great questions that I always liked to ask at the beginning of an interview, when I was talking to somebody who had used the product, and I was talking to her about possibly becoming a Mary Kay consultant, as I like to just start with a very open-ended question like, so tell me about yourself. Which I suppose technically, that's not a question, right? It's a statement. But so tell me about yourself. Very open-ended. And what can be gleaned by that kind of a question is to pay attention to how they answer. Because if she, in this case it was typically a woman who I was recruiting to be a Mary Kay consultant, if she answers by saying, well, I've got 3 kids and I've been married for 13 years and we just moved into a beautiful dream house, etc., etc., etc. What that tells me is that she is family-oriented. She's family-focused. What that tells me in turn is that she's most likely a high S personality. And this S in the DCIS personality matrix. There's a lot of personality matrix out there, but this personality type is somebody who likes the status quo. And she is a very giving kind of a person. And she'll do a lot more for others than she will for herself typically. And utilizing all of that information as you're going forward into the close is really helpful because you use very different closing strategies with a high S personality than you do, for example, with a high D personality. And we're not going to get into that in this video. That'll be in a next video, how to utilize knowledge of personality types to close the sale. So just know that when that kind of an answer reveals a high S personality. If you say to her, so tell me about yourself, and she responds by saying, well, I was recently promoted in my job. I'm now the VP of General Affairs at XYZ company, and I really love it. I like all the responsibility. What this means is that now I've got a larger team that I manage, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That is most likely revealing that she is a high D personality, because she's telling you about her career first, and her accomplishments, talking about, her accomplishments in her career. Those are signs that she's a D personality. A D personality is a very small percentage of women, and only about 10% of the population overall are high D personalities. But these are your typical executives, people who are in charge, leaders. They're excellent people to be on your team if you're building a network marketing organization, frankly. And so a lot of successful network marketing leaders end up interviewing a lot of high D personalities. That's who you actually want on your team. If you say to the person, so tell me about yourself, and she tells you about, oh my gosh, well, I love to swim, and I just finished reading this fantastic book, and as a matter of fact, I'm recommending it to my book club for next month, and I am the chairman of my block party committee, and I also do a lot of things at school with my kids, and I have a bridge group that I belong to as well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She's telling you all about her social activities or what she does for fun. That is revealing that she's a high I personality. She's telling you about the people in her life. Who is in her life? That's what's important to her, other people. That's telling you that she's a high I personality. And that type of personality is, again, this is somebody who can be a fantastic addition to your team if you're building a network marketing team, but they can be a little bit flighty too. That's the shadow side of this I personality. They'll say, woo, yeah, I want in. And then the next day they totally change their mind. So, and that type of personality often does come up as well as being a good person in a network marketing organization because they're very, very social. They love other people. And then the final personality type is the high C personality type. And so if you say to her, so tell me about yourself, and she answers by saying something that's very analytical in nature, like what might she say? She would say to you, well, what do you mean by that? In other words, she asks you to clarify your question. that is a definite sign that she's a high C personality. So a high C personality is somebody who is data-driven and fact-driven. And they want to, there's somebody who, before they can make a decision, in other words, before you can close them, they need to have all the facts. And it needs to be in a certain order, and it needs to be organized properly. They need to have thoroughly analyzed every piece of the data. That's a high C personality. Again, can be a very strong person on your network marketing team if that's who you're interviewing, if that's the type of sale that you're talking about. So, I end up framing this in terms of a network marketing sort of a sale, because that's frankly where I learned it. But utilizing these questioning techniques to understand the personality type is very valuable, regardless of what it is that you're selling, because you, as I mentioned, you utilize different closing techniques as you are presenting the offer and as you are holding their hand towards the actual close, as opposed to them saying, well, let me think about it. You say, okay, fine, no problem, I'll talk to you later, right? You don't want to do that. You want them to say, well, let me think about it. You say, I agree. I would do the same thing if I was in your place. That's a very wise thing to think about it. But let's think about it together, right? And hold their hand through the close. And you're going to do that in a very different way, depending on what personality type it is. And your questioning techniques is a great way to arrive at that. So the last thing that I said I was going to share with you is a few really strong questions that I like to use beyond the, so tell me about yourself, opening question. But before I do that, before I share a couple of great questions, I want to remind you about the webinar that I have coming up next week. If you've enjoyed what you've learned, if I've given you a little bit of a different way to think about sales, giving you some interesting nuggets, you'll get lots more of that on the webinar, which is the secret to getting more clients and leads. And that webinar is next week on June 12th and 13th. I'm doing it live twice. So to register for that, to get the times and dates and all that sort of thing, go to intuitivebusinesswoman.com/secret. So let's wrap up this video with these good questions that I want to have you start using. A great one is, have you ever used a product or service like this before? And what were your results? So regardless of what your business is, if you're selling a product or service, the type of thing where you're selling you're a property management service, or you sell motorcycles, or whatever it is, if you have something that they may have had experience with in the past, it's a great question. So have you ever used something like this before? Have you ever purchased something like this before? And what was your experience with it? Great question, especially if you listen to their answer, because they will tell you basically they're going to tell you exactly what you need to say to close them. When you ask, what was your experience before? They're most likely going to tell you all the things that went wrong, and pretty much all you need to do is assure them that all those things are going to go right, and the sale is yours for the taking. So that's an excellent question. The other question I'd love for you to ask, and this is for those of you who are in a business which is more transformational oriented, those of you who are coaches, if you're doing weight loss coaching, if you're doing business coaching, if you're a financial planner of some kind, and the question is this: if I was a fairy godmother and I could wave my magic wand over you and turn everything out exactly the way you want it, what would that look like? What would you ask me for? So it's the fairy godmother question. It's the fairy godmother close. And actually, it's a closing question that you ask toward the beginning of your sales conversation. If I was your fairy godmother, what would you ask me for? Because what that does is it gets them dreaming and wishing and hoping and envisioning what it is that they want. And in that place, they are in a very, very emotional state. And by turning up their emotions, now you can show them strategies for how you can help them get those emotions that they want. Very powerful closing strategy. And like I said, we're going to go into more detail about how to do that on the webinar. So please check out intuitivebusinesswoman.com/secret to register for the free webinar, How to Get More Clients and Leads. And thanks very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you on the webinar.